welcome to another edition of Here's the Pitch, sponsored by Masses Restaurants in St. Louis, 5 locations. We talk about them all the time. Go to stlmasses.com, look at their menus. If you're driving through, you can get directions to their restaurants. So go there, stlmasses.com. I'm excited today. I flubbed up a little bit because I'm really excited. Brent Hatley is joining me today, and Brent, of course, from Bubba the Love Sponge fame and the Howard Stern Show. Now he is on his own doing a Twitch show, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you, Brent. Thank you for joining me. What are you going to put in your green screen? Do I have to green screen something behind you? I'm not sure what to do here.
No. I just use this the production office back here. No need for the green screen today. It's just a nice green background so you can see me.
So, I mean, everyone remembers you from your days at Bubba and your days at Stern and now doing a Twitch show. So let's just talk. We were kind of just bullshitting a little bit about Twitch to start before we came on here. And I was like, oh, man, yeah, I know that it's, a lot of gamers use it. My 12-year-old stepson's using it. He loves Twitch, da-da-da-da-da. And you were telling me, because I'm a neophyte, obviously I'm on this old YouTube technology, that Twitch is really kind of becoming a place for broadcasters and musicians. Tell me a little bit about it, and then your decision kind of to go there.
Yeah, so Twitch is becoming for broadcasters and musicians as well. They feel like they're good with gamers. They've got that market like pretty much cornered. So they wanted to fill out. They have talk shows and podcasts section on there on Twitch, and they have a just chatting section. So you can see broadcasters in there. Bubba actually is in there, does a very good job on Twitch. There's other radio people on there doing their radio shows, and now you see musicians like Rob Flynn from Machine Head. You see the guys from Trivium on there. And they come on and they take requests and play live. It's kind of a way that you can really interact with your audience because you have the chat right there that you can talk and answer questions. So I think it's a great platform with great distribution, and the artists like yourselves can kind of take more control of your content, and you can get paid more directly for your content. So that's part of my decision to come here, is because broadcasting is moving to being a very niche thing. You've got to have like a very specific area of things that you talk about. And that's what works very well on Twitch. I know my agent, there's a guy that we have the same agent, and he's got a channel on Twitch about aviation that does very well because he gets down to the nitty gritty about it. So we get into the nitty gritty about partying and sex, but that seems to work.
Yeah. And I'm going to get into kind of the last days at Stern, but was this something in your mind as you kind of flip the calendar to 2020 is, I want to do something on my own. I want to do something that I like to do, and that's basically where it came from?
Correct. It was kind of Thanksgiving of 2019. I started thinking, I'm the latest I'm going to stay here is the end of 2020. And then I had started talking to Twitch in December, and they said, hey, whenever you're ready, we'll partner you, and you can come here, and you can basically do the content that you want to do, and we'll support you in that. So I got to thinking about it, and then kind of the pandemic was coming because I consume a lot of the European press, and I saw what was going on in Europe. And that New York City, when anything like this happens, New York City is going to be ground zero. And just being here in Tampa at Thanksgiving time with my wife, I was just like, the cost of living here is a third of what it is in New York City. There's no state income tax. It's a lot more conducive to our lifestyle as the tropical people that we are, the partying people that we are, and kind of the unserious people that we are at times. So I love all the people in New York, but I just had enough of living there, and I'd had enough of corporate America, to be quite honest with you, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah. So we're going to get into all that, but I do want to get some background in. I like to kind of just learn more about you. So tell me how the radio background, where it came from, because I think, again, everybody remembers you and Bubba kind of being hand in hand. Did you get into radio with Bubba, and how did you kind of make that connection? Obviously, being in Tampa is a big thing.
So that goes all the way back to 1992. I was going to school for pre-law. I wanted to be a lawyer, actually. I was in the Marines, and I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to get out and be a lawyer, and I wanted to argue cases on appeal, very specifically Fourth Amendment cases, which is the right to search and seizure cases on appeal at the Supreme Court. That was my pathway. And I started listening to Howard in 91 when he came on in Los Angeles. And I was like, well, I can do a lot more good and get a lot more of my stuff out if I do radio. And growing up, I would walk down to the Little League football field and announce the football games, like over the PA, like I was on TV. So I'd always been interested in this, and I always stayed up late at night listening to the radio in my room, and I was just way into radio. So Howard kind of sparked that and rekindled that in me in 1991. And I was like, wow, this is something I could really get into doing, because I'm into the heavy metal lifestyle. I'm into hanging out. I'm into partying. And this is kind of akin to that, like, for lack of a better term, shock jock radio kind of goes in hand with what the rock and roll lifestyle is, the same life group, per se. So I stopped being a law major and switched to broadcast communications. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I moved back to Tampa, because that's where I'm from, the Tampa Bay area. And I started interning at 98 Rock, and then they hired me very shortly after that. That was in 93. And I've been in radio ever since, and rock and shock radio since 93. So, of course, worked with Bubba. I've worked with Howard. I worked with Mary Lou Henner, Lisa Ann Walter, who was the actor in The Parent Trap, and worked at Clear Channel, Cox, Beasley, Sun Broadcast Group. I've had lots of experience in radio, and I love it all. I absolutely love it all, the good and the bad and everything that comes with it.
Yeah, and the Bubba thing is interesting to me, because at this point he's sort of becoming big as Howard's becoming bigger. Not the same path, but they're both making their way up. You hear about Bubba's name, you hear Mancow's name, especially when there are people sort of trying to replicate Howard's show in different cities. What was that like for you to be part of a show where maybe at some point you're like, I want to work for Howard, I'd like to work, but you're on a show that's competing, and you know that you're going to have to talk shit about Howard at some point, which Bubba was doing it. Not as much, I don't think, right? Because it was more the other guys, but
it was more. It was kind of more in all in good fun. Is when we started competing with Howard in Hartford, and quite frankly, Howard started talking shit about Bubba, which was funny. Like, the funny thing about Howard is when he talks shit about you, it's kind of funny. Like, it's hard even when you're in studio when he's raking you over the coals not to laugh, because it's funny. And so then Bubba fired back, but it was nothing personal or mean or anything like that. And, we lost in Hartford, and we lost we came in second to Howard in Orlando. And then we won in Fort Myers, actually. Fort Myers was always a great market for Bubba. And the difference is Howard is very measured and smart and well thought through. Bubba is a bull in the china shop, which kind of really makes him entertaining on the radio, because you're on the edge of your seat, because you don't know what this madman's going to do next. He doesn't have a filter a lot of the times, I'm in the studio with him and I'm uncomfortable. So I know if he's making me uncomfortable, he's making the people listening uncomfortable, and they're not going to turn. So that was the thing with Bubba's shows. We really racked up the time spent listening. We could really hold the audience for a long time, because Bubba has ADD and he has no filter. So there was never a slow or boring moment with him.
And you can go to my channel and see my interview with Bubba, and I'm going to try to get him back on here. And we talked about this at length, kind of that moving to the Howard 101 channel. What did you know about that? Did he keep you in line and tell you what was happening, or did he kind of surprise you guys? And what did it mean when you knew, holy shit, I'm going to be working on a Howard Stern network, basically?
So fortunately for me in the organization, I worked hand in hand with Bubba on this deal. So you can go back to 2004. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and I'm talking with Bubba, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you give Gary Delavate a call and see, like, with this Sirius channel, if we can get the afternoon slot?" I was like, I love Gary, but I'm calling Don's office. I'm calling Don Buchwald's office. So I called Don Buchwald's office, and I expected to leave a message with his assistant. His assistant puts me through to his cell phone, like, live. So Don gets on the phone with me and says, "Hey, you and Bubba be in my office. This is on Tuesday at noon." I'm like, "We'll be there." So we're there Tuesday at noon, and we bring all these materials to give Don for him to review. And we want to be on the channel. And Don sits us down on a couch in his office, and he says, "We have a list of people that we want to work with, and there's one show on that list, and you're that show. And we know all this stuff. We've already looked to it," because of course they had. Of course they'd done their research and looked around. So he says, "Come back at 4. Howard will be here." So Howard and Bubba sat down at 4:00. They let all of bygones be bygones. But like I said, it was childish name calling. It wasn't anything really serious. So they worked that all out. And that was at the end of 2004. And then a few months later, I get a call from SiriusXM and from Bubba saying, "Hey, listen, Howard wants to borrow you to come up there and help develop the channels and get them ready for channel launch." Because basically you just had 2 channels there with nothing. Like, nothing had been done. So it was like 4 of us there was a senior vice president, and then a consultant, and then a couple of us that actually, put a lot of the work into getting the channels ready. So I was fortunate to be involved in it the whole time. And I was fortunate to be, selected by the Howard Stern team to come up and help with channel launch. And Bubba was gracious enough to let me do that. And then I finished that up in October of 2005, came back, helped Bubba get ready for channel launch in January of 2006. And we all went up together in January of 2006 and did the first 2 weeks live from Sirius. So it was an incredible experience, something I'll never forget for sure.
What were some of your ideas, and did they stick? I know Miserable Men was a big one back in the day. The Jackie Joke Hunt is funny. Did you have any crazy ones that they said, that sounds a little odd?
We had, the ideas back then were nuts. So some of the times I would get on conference calls with Sal and Richard, and we would all kick around ideas for both shows. And one, and then Sal and Richard have talked about this on the air, but the one that I really loved is they wanted to both hang by their feet and put a cup in their mouth and see who could get the most pee in that cup. And I loved that idea. That got shot down. And then Richard came up with the idea that we should take somebody and have them dip their balls in a bowl of fire ants, which up there they said no way. And Bubba was like, oh, we're doing that. We're doing that immediately. Everybody collect fire ants and bring them in. So we did that to 25. It was insane. It was insane. The amount of pain he was in from fire ants biting his balls was incredibly insane. And that was the thing, is sometimes the stuff that you can't do in corporate America, because we were here in Tampa off in an industrial park, you can do there. And I would get some phone calls at night from SiriusXM executives saying, you can't do that again. What's the matter with you? You people are insane.
Yeah.
But that was the problem of working with Bubba. Never a boring moment.
I was going to say, too, as you mentioned that, and I was thinking, all right, well, Sirius seems like they're a little more stiff and stodgy even than terrestrial radio. I mean, you have all these different companies, so maybe Entercom is a little more lenient than Infinity, whatever. But I would think Sirius is like, all right, no shocking the puss, none of this stuff. But you guys aren't even there. You do whatever you want. It's going to be broadcast, and then they have to call you later. So it's probably even more fun because those calls become part of the show then. Hey, guess what happened yesterday? Well, we're doing it again today. They can't get to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Those calls became part of the show. And then, at the time, looking back on it now, we should have been a little more lighthearted about it, like you're saying now, and so made it part of the show. It became part of the show, and we got very angry about it, which was very good content, gotta say, really good content. But it was just an interesting time because there was no FCC rules. So you're just like trying to figure out what the rules are, and they're still vague. The corporate rules are just as vague as the FCC rules. And, SiriusXM, because they're such a large corporation with so many investors and so many lawyers, they are overly cautious, for sure.
I remember when you left and you and Bubba separated, it seemed like a lot of people said, oh, my God, and then there was like bad blood. And I know it seems like when I talked to both of you, just in our conversations via email or whatever, and Bubba, especially on this podcast, he said, no, I love Brent. Why do you think was there some of that? Was there bad blood early on and then it kind of faded away, or people just kind of trying to pick
No, I've never harbored ill will towards Bubba or anyone really for that matter. I'm, Bubba and I are like brothers, like you're going to fight with your brothers, but you're still family at the end of the day. And I love Bubba, and I appreciate, like, somebody gives me a job for 13 years. There's not going to be bad blood there. I really appreciate everything he's done for me in the broadcast industry. Really, when you get down to it, Howard too has given me a job 2 different times. Like, you really can't be upset with anybody about that. So there's no bad blood ever. I'm thankful for the time I got to spend on Bubba's show, for real.
And so what made you leave? I mean, Mary Lou Henner is definitely not doing shock jock.
No. I was burned out. Because we had a trial. We had a defamation trial with Todd Schnitt, who's a conservative talk show host. And he sued us on 42 counts of defamation. So for 5 years, I would do the morning show. And a lot of afternoons, I had to go over to the lawyer's office and sit through depositions all afternoon as the corporate representative for the Bubba Radio Network. So I was just completely crispy, toasty, burned out. And I needed to take a step back for a minute, for my own mental health. And then I worked for Neil Strauss for a little bit, who's an author in his office, which was calm for, 3 months. And then broadcasters came to me and said, hey, we need you to work with Mary Lou Henner. Like, she's a TV person. She's got bubbly personality. Teach her how to do radio. And that was wonderful too. Like, that's an incredible person as a human being. Her smarts are off the chart. So it's just, it was just a time for me to step away. And then this last time, I'll tell you one of the other things from walking away from Howard, one of the main reasons is I'm done getting up in the morning. I'm a night person. My clock is at night. I even do my show at 6 p.m. because I am not a night person at all. So that's heavy. Bubba talked to me and said, hey, you can come back and work for me. And I was like, Bubba, that'd be great. There's no bad blood and there's no heat. But I ain't getting up at fucking 4 a.m. ever again, unless I'm already up and I'm partying with hot nude chicks. That's it. That's the only reason I'm going to be up at 4 a.m.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys did it. I don't know how those guys do it and have been doing it for so long. Especially Howard he could record it and people would still listen. It doesn't have to, but I guess feels like it has to be new, right?
Yeah, he feels like he has to be there live. It's just like that old school mentality. Like we're in a new digital world now, and I do like being live on Twitch. I do like the fact that you can just be live and your chatters are there, and you can interact and respond to things live. I do like that, and I'm sure he likes to respond to the callers live, and there's some interaction there. And there's just that urgency, too, of being live to know that it can't be edited. So that all probably factors into it. Here's the thing, though. There's no need for him to be on at 7 in the fucking morning. Howard could do a show from noon to 3 if he wanted to. Like, there's no reason whatsoever to be there that time in the morning. Now, Bubba has got to be there. He's got morning drive on terrestrial radio. He's got to be there in the morning. Howard could set his own schedule. He could do afternoons if he wanted to. Why would you get up at that time in the morning if you're Howard Stern? I have no idea. But I'm sure it's also a force of habit is doing it for so many times. I'm sure his body clock, I'm sure he wakes up before his alarm a lot of mornings, just like I started to. Yeah. But I've readjusted to nights.
Yeah. So how do you end up working in that bubble of the Howard Stern show? You do these other shows, and then you become a producer over there. You're one of the guys. And tell me how that worked out and what it meant to you to get that opportunity and say, just tell me all about it.
It was awesome. So my old boss that he oversaw the launch of the channels. His name was Jeremy Coleman. He is the senior vice president of the Howard Stern channels. He called me up and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in LA. Can you come?" This was in 2014, May of 2014. He said, "Hey, I'm going to be in LA. Can you come out and talk to me about possibly working for the Stern channels?" I said, absolutely. Date and time. So I go there and I met with him. I also, oddly enough, had an interview with SiriusXM in the same building on the same day with the Jason Ellis show. So, and Jason's a great guy too. I love him. And also at that same time, I was talking to the NFL Network TV, which is based out in Venice, as being one of their morning show producers. So I get offered the job with the NFL, and they say, "Hey, that's contingent on your background check." The NFL digs into your asshole on a background check. So
not the players, not the players, just producers and people that
yeah, exactly.
Kill your wife and play there, but
right. But if you're going to work here as a producer on a morning show, we need to make sure you're okay. All right. So that's going to take about 3 weeks. Well, within that time, I go to a party at Sam Simon's house, and that's his birthday party, and Beth Stern is there. And I see her and say, "Hey," she's like, "Hey, what's going on? How are you doing?" She's like, "Where are you working?" I was like, "Well, I'm working for Clear Channel right now, and I'm going through my background check with the NFL, and it looks like I'm going to get a job with the NFL." I said, "But I did an interview with Jeremy for the Stern job." So she's like, "Does Howard know that?" And I said, "I have no idea. I'm not going to bother him about that. This is something that he's got people that handle it." She was like, "Well, I'm telling him right now." And I was like, "Well, he's your husband, so you can tell him whatever you want." And that was a Friday night. That Monday morning, I pretty much had a job offer from SiriusXM. They went through their background check. So on the same day, the NFL background check comes back clean. The SiriusXM background check comes back clean. And I have a job offer from both on the same day. So I went with Howard because like I said, the guy's been nothing but wonderful to me. So I went with Howard. I had to call the NFL. They said, "This is the first time we've ever had anybody turn down this job offer with us." But the guy was from New York, luckily, and he was like, "I'm a huge Stern fan, so I get it." So, and his wife was a television personality that has the same agent as Gary. So he was like, "I totally get it." But oddly, this is the first time this has ever happened. So then I took the job, and I got there in August of 2014. So one of the first things I worked on was when Eric the actor passed away, and we put together, a big group of us helped put together a big tribute to Eric the actor. So I just got to pitch in and help on that. That was one of the first things I worked on. So it was awesome.
That's crazy. It's been that long since he's been gone. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
I would have said 2017 if someone asked me about that.
Yeah, 2014. Crazy.
So what did they hire you to do? Did they say the job was? Go ahead, take a drink. I'll keep talking, and I can. Let's talk about the job that you took at the Sirius with Howard. There you go. You took a drink.
So I was a senior producer. So when I first got there, my main thing was I had to oversee the shows that were on 101, and then start transitioning towards also producing the wrap-up show. So I worked with Riley. I worked with Jay Thomas. It was fantastic, and RIP to both of those gentlemen. They were both really fun to work with. I set up when Jay Thomas would do a crossover with Riley, to hand the show off to him, and it was radio gold. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And Jay Thomas he was a master at making people feel uncomfortable on the air. And I love that. And then in the start of 2015, I started producing the wrap-up show, working with John and Gary, who were just two incredibly nice human beings. I love those guys. And we had a great time with the wrap-up show. And then I morphed into one of the senior producers on the show and one of the on-air talent on the show, because they kind of find people with interesting, weird, quirky personalities and lives, and that Howard can kind of dissect and pick through. So they were like, we definitely need to get you in there on the air so we can go through your insanity.
They were going through some major changes, too, from what I remember, because Howard had his address around 2013 to the whole staff, and we need to change things, and then MARCI comes in. Did those guys tell you, wow, this is really different here? I mean, things are different, or did they how did it seem? How did the atmosphere seem to you?
Well, because I was there before and they're there. It was two totally different things. Now it's much more with everybody that came in now. It's much more structured and much more. There's a very definite, solid structure to it. Which with an organization that big, you kind of have to do that. You can't let things get out of control. So there's a definite, solid structure to things, and with that comes a little bit more red tape of getting your stuff on the air. But I understand. Like, you've got to the amount of stuff that's getting pitched to Howard, it's got to be cut down to a manageable amount that he actually gets to look at. So it's more structured. Last time it was a free for all, and there's that came through on the air too. Like, there's things to be said for a free for all, but I understand in an organization that large, it has to be brought under control, and it really was under control. They do have good systems in place there, and they do run a tight ship, and they do run a good organization. However, amidst all the criticism that they get, like, it's no easy task. You're the principal basically at a kindergarten, because all of us were very immature thinking. Sal, Richard, me, JD, SHULI. I mean, that group alone. Then you start throwing in Jason and Will and Gary. Like, I mean, could you have a group of more immature guys? Like, Gary is like the most mature one of all of us, and controlling us, which we needed to be controlled at times, is not easy. So I would not want that job, but they have done a good job of putting a structure in there and running a tight ship.
That's what I was going to say, too, because there was a point there where I was sort of in and out, and then there's a Mehmet who shows up, and a Nowicki, and Chris Wilde, all these people that I'd never heard of, and I'm like, where are they coming from, and why is he bringing them all in? What did you think of all this new, or was it, I need younger, new talent? I've got Will, I got Jason, they've been with me for 20 years, but I want some newer, fresher voices.
Well, I don't think it was that. I think it was, Mehmet is an interesting guy to begin with. So, like, he's interesting to talk to off the air, but on the air, he's even more interesting to talk to. And I like the fact that he will let his, neuroses, come through the mic. Nowicki is just a talented performer, kind of an interesting guy. Like, he can build guitars and set models. And, he's just an interesting, very, very talented guy. And Chris Wilding's one of those other people like me that's completely insane. So they kind of pick the people out in the office that are somewhat on some level interesting or quirky or insane, and that's what Howard can really break down. There's a ton of people that work there that are perfectly normal, middle of the road people, but that's not the ones that you hear on the air. You hear the insane people on the air because that's what's interesting. Like, you don't want to hear the guy that's sitting next to you in the cubicle at Barclays or at, the guy that's working with you at Home Depot. That's not what you're looking to hear. You're looking to hear people that are really out of their minds, and I think that's what they look for.
Tell me some of your favorite bits that you pitched, or was it just, hey, this weekend I'm going to be swinging, come join me? Or tell me, is that?
Yes. So what I kind of did was my wife and I would go out and do stuff, and we kind of put together the notes on Sunday. We'd sit up on the roof of our apartment building and kind of smoke, and then put together the notes on Sunday, and I would email them to Jason and say, and he would always, I'd always tell him, like, hey, if you want this story, I'm glad to come in and tell it. If not, no big deal. So and they would, it would go into the stack that they present Howard, and he would call you in if it was an interesting story. It was basically that. I loved, as acrimonious as it was, I loved the back and forth with SHULI and I, and people think I hate SHULI. I really don't. He's like a brother. SHULI and I worked together fucking 24/7, it seemed like. From the moment we got to the building to the moment we left, SHULI and I worked together a lot. So we were kind of like brothers. We would fight like that on the air. So I love SHULI. I don't dislike him, but I did like what he did for this reason. It's because a lot of people out there have misperceptions like SHULI does. And he was representing a portion of the audience that just has this complete misperception of what swinging is or what the lifestyle is. Most people, if you're not in it, you really don't know or have any idea what's going on. And a lot of people have those misperceptions. And I was glad SHULI and Howard kind of filled that void for the audience so they could take that position.
And then again, when you left there was all this. I mean, I read it and I heard Brent left. He stormed off. Tell us about just leaving, because it was just one day. You're not there anymore. Howard doesn't even really mention it. Tell us a little bit about that week where you actually have to tell them. And you're telling me it was fine. I had an idea, but tell us a little bit about that ending.
Yeah. So as much as I can tell you. Here's what I can tell you. I just went to the powers that be and said, this is what I'm thinking. And then, like I said, I can't really get into detail, but there was a lot of back and forth. And then, we worked out an amicable deal where we can all shake hands and walk away friends. But I left. And here's the thing is lots of people say, oh, he was fired. I wouldn't be able to legally say that I was not fired. If I was fired, I'd legally, if you know anything about corporate exit agreements, it would cost me a shit ton of money if I was fired and I went out there and said I wasn't fired. It just would. It was just, I wasn't. I have no ill will towards SiriusXM. They have no ill will towards me. Same with the Stern Show. I just wanted out of New York. I wanted out of the cold. I wanted to do my own thing, and I wanted to move back into the tropics. So I'm only going to live one of three places the rest of my life, either the Tampa Bay area, New Orleans, or out in the Venice Beach, Santa Monica area of California. That's it. Those are the only three places I'm really interested in living. So I wanted to get back here, and I wanted to do my thing, and coronavirus played a small role into it. I'd say 10 to 15%. That pushed me over the edge. I was like, this is getting ready to get real bad in New York. I told my wife, real bad. So once I signed my exit agreement in mid-March, we weren't going to move to the end of March. We moved it up 2.5 weeks and said, we're getting out of New York area right now. So we packed everything up and we hauled ass down here. And luckily enough, I had a friend that could let me stay with him until I got an apartment let me stay with him for about a month and a half till I got this beautiful apartment for, it's a third of what I was paying in Jersey City. So in Jersey City, I had a 600 square foot apartment. Here, I've got over 1,000 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, huge, in the sweetest part of St. Pete. And it's the rent's almost nothing. We got used to paying New York prices. I'm like, really? That's what you want for this apartment? Where do I sign the lease and how long can I sign for? So I'm just much happier now.
Yeah, my goal is to be a neighbor of yours, at least in the winter, and that's what my wife and I are trying to live vicariously through you as we I don't know if we'll be coming over.
St. Pete, Brad.
Yeah.
St. Pete. That's where you want to be.
we like the West Palm, Jupiter area, kind of. That's where the Cardinals have spring training. Yeah, it's beautiful over there. It's a little more expensive, but we'll figure out a way. I'm amazed. I was looking at that because I think March 11th may have been your last day, and I'm fairly certain March 13th was the day the NBA shut down. So, I mean, that is crazy that it happened like that because me and my wife and my stepson were going to Disney World that next week, and she's like, I don't know if it's, she's like, they're going to close it. And we're like, everyone's like, they're not closing Disney World. It's like, they don't close Florida, Clark, and they, son of a bitch, closed goddamn Disney World. So she knew about it before then. Do you get a chance? You made it sound like you don't even really want to talk to Howard, even when you're trying to do work. So I'm assuming there's been no contact with him since, right? Or has there?
When I left, there was contact with him, and he was. It could not have been nicer. I wish I could get on here and read you the note that he sent me and the note that I sent him. Like as a human being, he's a sweet human being. I love him and Beth as people. They are great people. And he sent me a beautiful note when I left. And I'm just not gonna bug the guy, obviously. But I do keep in contact with almost everybody there. Just because they're friends. They've been friends of mine since 04, 05. So it's been a lot of years that I've known these people. So. And in the business, it's a small business, and once Howard retires or they trickle out and leave and go do some other stuff, who knows who might work together or who will be on whose shows. So I just try to stay in contact with everybody.
Yeah. So with Bubba, you weren't obviously up at Sirius that much, and then you joined in 2014, so you didn't really get to be around Artie Lange a lot, but I always love to ask anybody who was around Artie Lange, do you have a good Artie Lange story? He did come to Bubba's wedding. It became a huge, great story for both shows, I'm assuming. And he would call in, too, every once in a while. Did you get to know Artie real well?
Yeah, I did, actually. And even when I was leaving Bubba's show, he was one of the people that I talked to on the phone, and he kind of was like, Brent, you're going to be fine. You're going to be great. Everything's awesome. So I love Artie. Artie is one of my favorite people in the world. Like, the guy is a sweetheart, and he's got a huge heart. And I feel for him for any of the pain that he's in. And I've told him personally up at Sirius when I've seen him up there, even with any of the bullshit he was going through with some of the people from the show not liking him, I just pulled him aside and said, hey, man, if you ever need anything, just give me, and I just texted him this the other day. If you ever need anything, support, or even somebody to talk to as a friend, just give me a call, because he was there for me when I needed somebody too. So, but the funny story is at Bubba's wedding, Artie had money on the Saints. The Saints were playing the Eagles in the playoffs. Artie had money on the Saints, and we're both looking at our Blackberries at that time to get scores. So I'm like, Artie, there's a sports bar like right across the street. We can go hang right over there. And he's like, okay, let's go. So Artie and I go over there. I get me a big, huge, tall whiskey sour, and I'm sitting there with Artie, who's stressing about money, like it's right on the edge of the Saints covering or not. And then I turn around, and there's everybody behind me, Tim Sabian and Gary, and like Scott Farrell. Everybody has come across the street and is with Artie and I partying. So later on that night, after everything's over and Artie lost money, he goes, hey, man, I'm glad because I'm a Saints fan. He's like, I'm glad your team won, even though I lost money. And I was like, hey, we're getting ready to go take some coke and go hang out with strippers. You want to come with us? And he was like, Brent, if I started doing coke, we'd wind up in St. Louis by the end of the night. I was like, okay, understood. I just wanted to be hospitable. So he turned down that, but a group of us did go out with the strippers and the coke that night.
Good for you. You did say you texted him. I know he's coming out of hiding a little bit. Have you talked to him or had any conversations with him via text in the last couple months?
No, I texted him the other day. I've got 2 numbers for him. I texted him to both of them just to tell him I hope he's doing well and if he needs anything. I haven't heard back from him, but I just wanted to reach out and let him know, man, I'm here for you if you need me, brother. And I love Artie. He's one of the most talented people that I've ever heard on the radio, and his stand-up is just fantastic. So great fucking guy. Love him.
Yeah, I've met him a couple times. I love that a lot of his punchlines ended with having a coked out in St. Louis, or he had a sandwich thrown at him at this place at the Funny Bone. So he's had some fun here, probably too much fun than he probably will be wanting to talk about in the future. But yeah, we love Artie. Were you around for Scott the Engineer's exit? I think that was after you, right?
No, that was before me. Scott actually in the last few months sat right next to me in the office with myself and SHULI, and who else was in there? Mike Fox. So huge office. He sat next to me. And Scott's one of the people in life outside the Stern Show or whatever. He's just one of the people in life I feel bad for Scott, and I used to tell Scott this all the time in person, so this is no secret.
Does he want to hear that? Because that's what he's been said. They've been calling him a loser for all these years, and you're like, I feel so bad for you. It's funny, but
I did. I told him, I feel bad for you, brother. And I said, Scott, the only thing I want for you is you to have 5 minutes of enjoyment in your entire life, because he really is that down on himself. And I think it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You get down and people tell you you're a loser, and you get into a downward spiral, and it gets in your head. And I tried with him. I told him, like, Scott, I love you. You're a great guy. Like, don't let any of this stuff get you down. And, he's somebody that's run into some bad luck and things like that. But I love Scott. I really, really do. I think he's a great guy.
What was that day like when he's not sitting there the next day? I mean, that just seemed like the weirdest one of all time.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just weird to me because I had no idea what happened. I hadn't even heard. I was like, what's going on? They're like, you didn't hear? I was, no. So it was just weird. It was weird, and it just made me incredibly sad because I love Scott, and he'd been with the show for so long, and I just think that he should have been able to like retire or whatever he wanted to do in his time, because he really did put his heart into the show for a lot of years.
Well, I hope one day he wants to talk here, because I think he would be fun to talk to and hear his story. But I'm not sure he's not sure he's going to be telling it soon. So we're wrapping up a little bit. Again, I appreciate your time. I guess I have to ask, because it's out, the jackhammer. That wasn't a big thing, right? That had nothing to do with you leaving the Stern Show. And everybody reads it, they go,
no. Here's the deal. My wife and I are swingers. That's what goes on in the swinging community. Like, this kind of stuff goes on all the time. Like, this past weekend, we were down in Fort Myers with a huge group of people at a huge, like, Halloween orgy. Like, we are swingers. That's what goes on. None of that stuff upsets me. Like, it really doesn't. Like, he's actually a pretty friendly guy. I went out to LA. I had a couple of chicks, and my wife was friendly with one of the chicks that I was with out in LA. That's what goes on in swinging. We're easygoing. That's just like something that I'm into isn't going to upset me. That's, what I'm saying? The people that say that are projecting their feelings onto me. That's not my feelings. My wife will tell you I'm like not a jealous person at all. In fact, all these situations that we get into really are a turn on for me. It's not me getting upset. So the jackhammer had nothing to do with us leaving. Nothing whatsoever. He's a nice enough guy, but swinging lifestyle, you meet, it's a dime a dozen, man. You meet lots of people. So, but that's what we are. That's what we do. We swing. Big deal.
You mentioned Scott the engineer. I believe he had an episode of swinging way back in the day. Did you guys have a chance to discuss?
He came up to me after the first time I went on the air and talked about it. He came up to me and he goes, "Hello, my fellow swinger." Yeah, he used to do the key parties, like where they would go, like you put your hotel room key in different bowls and just be random. Now that I don't know if I could actually do. Like, I need some time, and this is going to sound very chickish of me. I need some time to talk to the woman and kind of get worked up and into it. Like, and if a woman's not cool and doesn't have a cool personality, like, I'm out. And that's what I've learned that I like. I need to, like this past Halloween, like the party was at a regular bar from 8 to 12, so you couldn't really do anything. So it gave me a chance to like mingle and socialize with everybody. And then when it was time to get back to the house and get down to business, like I was comfortable with everybody. So yeah, it's a fun lifestyle, but people that aren't in it have some really serious misperceptions about what goes on and the jealousy of the guys in it. Because the guys in the swingers lifestyle are not jealous. Trust me, we have these conversations amongst ourselves all the time.
It's interesting. We have an area in St. Louis, a little west, that is known for this. Pineapples out on this front porch, so we know about it here. I don't know if I'd be able to partake. I know my wife would not be interested in that. But, the Twitch show, though, again, you're on Twitch, and just tell me a little bit about what you do. You do this every night. Tell us how we can find you and just kind of what you're doing there. And it's obviously seemingly working so far for you.
Oh, it is. It's working very well. So the Twitch channel is at Brent Hatley on Twitch, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time every night. We are on, my wife and I, and it's a show that is politics free. So if you're looking for politics free, we got you covered. It's politics free. We talk about music. We talk about sex. We talk about sometimes the law. We get into fun discussions. And if people are chatters that have questions for us about Bubba or Stern or something that we did, we're happy to answer that. We address we take all the questions and we address everything. So and it's a fun discussion. Like the regular people that we have in chat are fun to chat with too, because there's some smart asses that like to give me a hard time and talk about how hot my wife looks.
Caitlin is very, very, very warm, I will say. As you do post pictures around Twitter, and I get very happy about that. So I look forward to. I'm going to watch. I'm going to get on Twitch. I'm not a gamer, but I need to get on Twitch and find this stuff out. But I really, your career and your just kind of your background so cool. I do want to. I don't know if you talk about your time in the Gulf War at all. If you do have any. If you have stories, I don't know if I want to hear stories, but I want to say thank you for being a part of our military. What does it mean to you now, seeing how we'll talk politics for 1 second. I mean, tell me a little bit about that experience and tell me a little bit about what you think of what's going on in the world right now. Just give me a...
Quickly, it was a great experience in the Marine Corps. It was an honor and a privilege to serve this country. We have a great country, and it was an honor, as I said, and a privilege to serve this country in the Marine Corps. And the Marine Corps did things for me, not just the Gulf War, just the whole experience. They did things for me and gave me intangibles in life that I'll never have. As far as what's going on in the world today, I think we need to bring all of our troops home. I really do. These guys, we've asked them to do too much, these men and women. We've asked them to do too much. And I think it's time for them to come home now. It's time to end up our foreign occupations of other countries. I don't think that that's doing you or me or any Americans any good. I think diplomacy goes much further than the bullet. But again, when you're called to serve, you, just like all of us did, you obey your orders and you go out there and you serve this country. So I'm thankful for everybody, every military person, firefighter, police officer that serves this country, and EMS and first responders. They do an amazing job, and a big thanks to everyone. And everybody's service is much appreciated.
All right, so I can't leave on that. Let's leave on something a little more light. Your favorite moment working on the Stern Show. Give us, when you think back, or even your career, what was your favorite just sort of radio moment from those years? But I like the Stern time. I mean, is there a
Stern time?
Yeah, is there one? I mean, it's funny because if you go to YouTube and look you up, it's basically every story is from your weekends. So that seems like you became a character just for that. But is there a favorite time, maybe in the back office with Will and Jason or one of those guys?
So my favorite time on the air was the time that, and I love Ronnie, the limo driver, just so everybody knows, I love him, and I was just busting his balls this time. So Howard had told us no more doing events like the Stars of Satellite Radio. It really bothers him. So Ronnie one morning, so there's a partition between us. It's not a wall, and he's talking loud. Like you hear him on the air talking loud to Sal about how he can get them booked for the Stars of Satellite Radio again. And Howard had said, like, anybody does anything like this again, you're fired. So I went to Sal. I was like, hey, is it okay if I go ahead and bring this up with Howard? Because I took notes on it. I was like, is it okay if I go ahead and bring this up with Howard? And he's like, Sal's like, absolutely. Like, I'm not doing this. I don't want to lose my job. So we waited one day, and then I brought it up, and Ronnie exploded, and that turned into like an hour of me versus Ronnie going back and forth. And I know he was mad, and I almost felt bad for him, but I just couldn't help myself that day. I had that little mischievous gremlin in me, and I wanted to go in there and do some great content. And that bit probably was my favorite because it got everybody riled up. It was like Team Ronnie, Team Brent, and like it got really everybody riled up, and it was lighthearted and fun. It wasn't going to get. Nobody was hurt by it.
I'll say, of all the puppets that have been created on the show, I mean, Ronnie is a real-life puppet. Like, the puppet's not even as funny as Ronnie is. It's that he's that always insane. It's funny to me. And so, yeah, I would assume it was fun working with Ronnie. I really appreciate your time. Anything that we missed? Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, thanks for having me, and thanks for having a real discussion about radio. And it's very interesting to have this type of discussion instead of some of the acrimonious ones that I have to have sometimes. But this was great, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
And I always say this to everybody that I send these out to. Hey, can I do this? I'm not here to throw bombs. I'm interested in that minutia of how it works. I think people who are in radio are interested on how it works. So you've done a great job, and it's been an interesting chat, and I appreciate you doing it with me today. So, Brett, have a great day. Appreciate your time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Again, Masses is the sponsor, stlmasses.com. Go there, get the menus on the website, look at the directions if you're coming through St. Louis. The Winghaven location, Winghaven, might be some swingers. That's what they say. So check it out, Masses Restaurants, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.